What's that like thing like email bankruptcy where like you just have too many emails to respond to and you're allowed to declare email.
Command all, archive all.
And yeah. Can I do that?
For what?
Just for all my, I have so many emails.
Oh, your emails?
Yeah. I mean, some of it's like, the accountants want stuff for like taxes. And,
they'll call you if they need you.
Yeah. Can I just like, sorry.
But then when people call me and I ignore it, I'm like, well, you can just text me if you need me.
They text you, you're like, hey, can you email me?
There was someone on Twitter who said like they realized that they had like calls from people who aren't on my favorites silenced. And so they had like two years of like missed calls and voicemail. They're like, whoops. I was like, that's actually pretty good.
Katie she has a shortcut on her home screen to toggle that on and off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think that's really
that's
nice.
Brilliant.
Yep.
So then you don't get like she can get a call from you, but
most of the
are
time,
you on her favorites list?
Not anymore. Most of the time, she keeps it on most of the time, but then she'll like be like, "Oh, I'm expecting a call from
that
something."
Makes sense to me. Like
she'll flip it on.
Yeah, you're expecting a call from something.
But she did it all with
the cops or something like that. You might want to talk it off.
See, like the Apple shortcut thing, the iPhone shortcut.
That's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever used that.
Yeah, I was like, when she showed me that, I was like, "Oh, that's like the first like real use that I've seen." Because you see the demos, and they're like, you're like, I'm never going to use that.
It always impresses me when like super, I mean, I know she's savvy, but like non-programmers like use the phone in ways that you don't, like when you learn something new about the phone from like your friend who's like not a tech person, it's like pretty impressive. Yeah. It's like, that's a really testament to like good design, because like how hard is it for us to do things with like the most powerful tools ever. And then like, if you package it in a way that can be used, I think it's, it reminds me of like my first job. I see like, there was like a grandma who worked right next to me. She was literally grandma, and she would like you watch her use her phone, and I was like, "Holy crap! Can you teach me how to use this thing?" Because like she was a ninja at it, Do we have this topic that we were excited to talk about, and we got pushed back a couple of weeks? You want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure.
Should I read this tweet from Ryan?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a tweet from Ryan Florence, co-creator of a remix, and he made React Router, and we've known about him for a while. He's a good follow on Twitter, but he has this tweet. He says, "My dad is an audiophile. He loves speakers. He doesn't listen to music. He listens to speakers. The speakers are the product. It seems a lot of developers are like that. The website or app doesn't matter. It's the code and tech they get to use to build it that matters. I've been talking about Remix almost exclusively from the user's perspective. So I'm not talking to developers who are like my dad and don't care. And that's fine that they don't care. I'm going to start talking more about our speakers and less about the music you'll play through them."
I love it. I mean, when I read that, I was like, this is so true.
But what was my reaction to this?
I think your reaction was, well, at the end of the day, it's all about the product that I'm building, and the product, what I'm building, matters. And so, for you, like the music matters.
Right. It's like, I was like, isn't this like almost the opposite way to think about it? Because, it's like when you talk about product development, don't they talk about like not what your product is, but what you can do with it? It's like you plus the product is like Super Mario, with like the fire on it.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're building a framework, the product is like the code. The product is all the technology that the devs get to use. And that's why I think this is so powerful.
Because really it's sorry, I was trying to find where I did that. You're saying in this case, like the superhero is like, I can make an animated thing a lot easier than before.
Yeah. It might even just be like, I feel good using GraphQL at my day job. I feel good using, I feel good using modern React. Like, think about it, like we can build, I think you can kind of like attack this from a bunch of different angles, but dude, for the websites we work on, I mean, seriously, for the websites we work on, we could use probably any technology. We could use like Rails, we could use PHP, we could use PHP with a framework, without a framework. We could use, React. Now, a lot of people come to us because we're React Next experts. Yeah. And so that's what they want.
Yeah.
But like if we just looked at like the goal that they're trying to accomplish.
It's a different goal trying to make like an app. It's kind of like you were saying when I was talking about making features in my demo, and then I heard the Basecamp podcast, and it was like, well, if you're making a product and like you're laser focused on like finding product market fit, you're gonna be approaching this very differently than if you're making a video to show off a cool UI thing for your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like that. Because like it feels like if you were in the product manager's seat and you were evaluating like tech and stuff, you would want the homepage to say like, look how fast I built this data table for my users. Whereas like what you're saying is like people like us, when we're evaluating things and looking at things, like you might say like Firebase, the homepage might say real-time collaborative thing in like less time than you ever thought. But at the end of the day, I'm going to care about whether it's using like a proprietary like data query builder API or if I get to use GraphQL. Is that kind of what you're saying?
It is, but just to be like a little more general there, I think the product manager's job is to decide
to sway
who's looking at the homepage.
Right.
And so for Remix, it's not people that are looking to build a data table as quickly as possible. It's people that are like, they're really into React. They're really into modern tech.
But what if you're a product manager, like a product company, not like at a tech, like your
product? I think, no, I don't think that. I think Remix is a product company. I think the product is the code that they sell. And
but like, what if you're creating like, a new to-do app or whatever?
Yeah.
And I guess the question is like, you're not going to be evaluating technologies like really, or like you're going to leave that to your CTO and like your tech team. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like,
yes.
It feels like there is a point at the end of it eventually where you need to communicate the benefits, and like ultimately, like the APIs are there to serve the product that you're building for the end user, right?
So if you had, going back to Ryan's analogy, if you had a speaker that was like just all the greatest speaker tech ever, but it just couldn't play music for some reason,
right?
I don't think his dad would buy that speaker.
Yeah.
There has to be some output. There has to be something. But like, I think when we're evaluating tech, the thing that really excites us is different from someone that's just trying to build an app and move on to their next task.
Yeah.
There's
because you're saying like
there's developers out there that just like I don't really care about any of the tech I use.
Right.
Like I have input, I want output. Right. If I have to write this in like PHP without a framework, that's perfectly fine. Right. And then I'll move on to the next thing. With us, we're like, we're more into the speakers. Like we're more into like, oh, is there GraphQL involved? Oh, how does it handle routing? Or their nested outlets? Like, we don't. Yeah, you can build a to-do app with or without nested routing, nested outlets, but we really care about that stuff.
Right. It gets right. It's more like, I guess earlier in my career, I would have been like, just I want to build something, and I felt empowered by tools that let me do that. But yeah, you're right. It's like, I guess it's like, I was thinking how Apple markets their stuff, and they kind of do both. And I guess maybe that is partly to like cater to the neckbeards who want to know about all the statistics on the latest chips. Like they're going to have all that stuff there, but most people who just care about what you can do with it, like that stuff is probably a lot more prominent, right? You go to their Mac page and it shows someone, doing some really complicated photo editing on their really fast on their MacBook. That's like the end user. But then you scroll down and you see how many nits are in the whatever.
There's actually, it's interesting you bring this up because Apple has been pushing more of the statistics lately. Mm-hmm. How many nits of brightness and how many CPU cores. And there's like an old Steve Jobs talk where it's like, you should never talk about that stuff.
Well, that's kind of what my reaction was when I first read Ryan's tweet, which was like, you shouldn't care, I guess.
But the developers do.
The product for developer is really about the APIs and stuff.
And so maybe Apple is identifying that like there are really like hardcore tech people that are into our products. So we do need to like put these in.
Yeah.
I don't, but I guess my point is like, you can't make a blanket statement that you should never talk about this or always talk about this. It's who's looking at your landing page.
And also how are they thinking? I mean, I guess it's hard, right? It's a continuum because like, I'd like to think if I'm working on a side, well, it's not true, right? part of the motivation for working on a specific side project is to learn about a specific piece of tech I'm interested in. But you would think if there was some piece of tech out there that was like you could do everything you're doing way easier. But then I was thinking it'd probably be like Swift UI and just building an iPhone app, or like maybe even React Native. But like I'm not actually interested in those for other reasons. So it's kind of to your point. You couldn't just. It's not true that I evaluate things based on how like productive they make me in a
you could
in a
be
vacuum.
Totally
you know what I mean?
Productive in like Rails.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
But it's not. It's you would the things that you find interesting. Would have really bad answers in Rails.
Yeah,
like writing JavaScript, doing client side stuff. The answer in Rails is it's not appealing for someone that's really into it. So you would just immediately discount Rails.
Yep.
So you care more about the speakers and the music.
Yeah, that's true. Even though I don't like to think I do, but yeah.
Well, there's like, you can take this too far. So I was thinking of this and I was like, Haskell is like the
tools Haskell only matter. It's almost like the tool is more important than what you're actually using it for.
So Haskell is like the speaker that plays no music. I mean, Haskell's
right.
Dude, I'm really thankful. I'm really thankful.
It's like a knife that's like super sharp, and you go over everything, and then as soon as you use it, like it like gets shavings on your food, so you can't actually cut anything with it. But it's like the sharpest blade ever. You know,
I'm like really, really happy I learned Haskell. I think Haskell made me a better programmer for sure. Like, so I wouldn't want to take any of that away, but like, I can't build a website in Haskell.
Yeah.
I remember I tried, and there's like all these frameworks and the way you wire them up. It's like,
you're going to get discouraged and demotivated before.
It's really,
so there's a balance. Yeah.
So I think like, I keep hitting my mic. I don't see that problem with Remix, where I don't see like, I can't build a website with Remix. I don't think that's the case. Yeah. So I think it's possible to cater so much to the audio files that you ruin your product.
Right.
But so I think if there's like, that's kind of like the product manager's job is to like balance those two things. So like at the end of the day, like the people using Remix have to be successful with it.
Yeah.
If they can't ship an app, but they learn everything about accessibility in HTML, that's like a failure. But if they can, there's a world where you can do both. I think, and you don't have to make sacrifices.
Yeah, and maybe that's why we don't switch technology as much, because we like learning, in depth how the things work. So maybe, I know like, Vue picked up a lot of popularity after React got started. Now Svelte is, and a lot of people say those kinds of things about it, that I can just build my page faster and move on. But then there's those of us who like, I don't know. It's like you want to be a mechanic a little bit more, because it makes you feel empowered to do things maybe you think you couldn't do otherwise. But it's just it's an interesting kind of, there's both of them there. I mean, I'm glad he said that, because some of the ways I have heard both them and other people talk about Remix is all about like, the Lighthouse scores and like the network tab and all that stuff. Whereas what's really going to get me excited about it is like nested routes, data loading, look at the state code you don't have to write, and that's definitely more about the speaker for sure. So I think that was good. That's like a good recognition on their part. About at least what developers like us care about.
Yeah,
want to hear it first.
And they might not like. They might look at our values as developers and be like, no, we
care more about the people who just
other values. Like, but I think it's really good to recognize that the people that are using Remix are people that care about the speakers. And I think that's like a really good insight. Like,
right. When we were working on Mirage, it was like we were really focused on the benefit. We were learning about like the marketing stuff, and it's interesting to think, it's kind of like we've all been there as developers. Like you're looking at a homepage and it's like, whatever the value proposition is, it's like, don't ever hate writing forms again, or like forms that stay in sync. But you're just like, I want to see what I'm actually going to use it, how I'm actually going to use this thing. Just show me the API, because that's actually what I care about. It's kind of what you're saying. Like it's a similar kind of thing. Like,
I think, again, like,
I feel like developers are sensitive to this. They just want to see the bare bone. They're more likely to be audiophiles in this analogy than someone buying like a consumer product, where there are people who buy speakers and care only about the specs, or they wouldn't buy a computer because it's like more expensive for the same specs than another computer. But most people probably are buying consumer products thinking about what they can do with it.
Dude, 90% of developers, probably more, probably 95% of developers are writing software that they don't use.
Right.
So it's very hard it's very hard. You can talk about like empathy and all this stuff, but it's extremely hard to work on a software product that you don't use. And so you're going to focus.
And then you also don't like what you're writing.
Yeah. So you're going to focus on like,
what your day-to-day experience is going to be like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's a great point.
You're drawn to the higher EPS. I think the Mirage stuff is good. I think one of the things we landed on with Mirage was we're going to have a video on the homepage that just shows how it's used because it wasn't going to be, there's no voice. It's literally just video.
Right. And there's no presumed use case, or specific thing, or showing a demo site to a salesperson or whatever, which we went down some of those roads.
But the point was you can see the API, you can see the usage.
Right.
I still think you need to talk about the benefits.
Yeah.
And I do think the way, I don't think all software products for coders need to have the same benefits. I think Rails can position itself and React is going to position itself very differently. And those are going to have completely different values. So.
Right. They do have different values. I mean, you could argue one thing you could say is maybe React went too far on like the audio file thing, right? Because the benefit is like make it easy to build great user experiences. That's kind of what they always say, like at their conferences and like on their webpage and stuff. That's like the overarching goal. And so that's like the playing the music thing. But then 99% of the material is really about like the speakers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you could imagine someone with different values would like bend that a little bit more. Like, I thought Rails always did a great job of like striking the balance where it's both important for the developer to have fun writing the code, but we also want to make sure they follow in the pit of success and create a user experience that's good for the end user.
I think Rails targets like, this is probably closer to me and you, but it's like a very specific type of developer that's like, I care about my code. I treat it as a craft.
Right.
But I also am extremely aware of my product.
Right.
And I want my product to be successful.
Right.
And so when I hear someone in Rails talking about all these decisions that will lead to better product development,
right,
I get really excited.
Right. Our convention over configuration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where I don't, React doesn't have those values. Like for sure they don't have those values. So
interesting. Yeah. Cool.
I like that. Like also too, there's something that when we were doing Mirage that we talked a lot about where it was like values have to be negatable.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful. So you can't say like, this using my product will give your users a better experience, because no one's going to take the opposite side of that. No one's going to want to say, actually, I want my users to have a worse experience.
Yeah.
But saying something like using my product will give you better HTML or better accessibility. Someone can say like, well, accessibility actually isn't a concern.
Priority.
Yeah. So it's not like I care more about animations and sound.
Right.
And those things are just kind of by default not really accessible.
Maybe like Figma doesn't care about because it's all in Canvas. Right?
Yeah.
So they actually, it's not for them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I like
the
I like
values.
when dev tools go down that road.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. I have an idea for a side project I want to make in Remix. Super simple. But what would you use for data if you were doing Remix? Would you use Prisma? Like, would you use Hasura and write server code that like talks to your Hasura backend?
I would.
If you wanted like the most, now you really do care just about the user experience. Like I have like a Saturday, and I'm just going to do Remix super happy path. I'm not going to do animations or modals or anything. I just want like pages with links and forms. What should I do for data persistence?
So I would probably use Prisma. Prisma is just like, it's awful.
I'll just read.
No, it really.
I'll just read the docs and I'll just be like, whatever, schema.users.insert or whatever it is.
Yeah, because that's going to be the fastest. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
Firebase.
I would use Hasura and Firebase if I was writing a client-side app.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
But that's not the Remix happy path.
I actually, I don't know enough about Remix to say. I don't know if they would say, like, you must be able to write a loader that talks to Hasura.
I think you want it to run on the server though.
Can you use the request headers from the request that comes? Like, I'm at a browser, I request something from the server.
I know, but I want to do all Remix way, where like no loading spinners.
Yeah, I would use
prefetch, like hover prefetch. Actually,
you want to write
the loader is separate from the component.
Server. You want to write a server app, is what you're saying. You want to write.
I want to write Remix app.
No, you want to write a server app.
They have loaders as separate functions that run on the server.
Yeah, so, you want to write a server.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in general, you want to write a server. So I would use Prisma, and then you are going to have to just listen to me talk about how stupid this is. And how
what about Supabase?
Again, that's client side. So Firebase,
Supabase?
Yeah, Firebase, Supabase, Hasura. Those are all. I would use those if my browser is talking to those, but I wouldn't. I know you can do this, but I wouldn't. Feels like a lot of extra steps to proxy those all through your backend.
Yeah, like what's the benefit of having like what do they call them? They're loaders and like the event handlers. They're called not mutations.
Actions.
Yeah, actions. If that's just gonna like make a request to
if you're just proxying
Hasura, it's like
maybe there's some like you get
the
server
session,
side rendering. But again, it just feels. With those technologies are like client side made for clients to talk to them. So like you think you're going down the Remix happy path, but you're not. So I would just use
Jokes app deep dive into Remix and full stack development with this app is backed by SQL database user auth and session.
Yeah.
So I should see.
And then if you're going to use Node, Prisma is by far the best SQL client.
Database. You can use any persistent solution you like with Remix. Firebase, Supabase, Airtable, Hasura, Google Spreadsheets, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you want. Set up, Prisma. Okay. So we're going to use our own SQLite database. I don't want an SQLite database. Prisma. Okay. Prisma init. Oh, God. That's fine.
Dude, Prisma.
And then DB push. So I'm going to be doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Prisma is...
Damn. It would be kind of cool to use Hasura.
No, because then now you're just creating all this extra work.
Well, are you? I mean, you get to run a GraphQL query from your loader, but now like all the routing is taken care of for you. You don't have any weird like routers ready. You don't have any links that render loading spinners.
I'll see you in a few weeks, buddy.
No, really. Like if I'm running the same query, I mean, it's not going to be
what are you going to use for auth?
Whatever they say.
Well, what are you going to use for auth?
Maybe I'll just use Firebase.
Okay. And then how are you going to get the auth from Firebase to your server?
Well, it's all in a cookie. It's all in a session. And then you verify it on each request.
Does your server have access to that session?
Doesn't it?
I don't think so.
Because
it's in like a Firebase cookie, and there's JavaScript on the client that you can get access to. But you can... Dude, you can totally do this. You're just going to spend a ton of time.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
A ton of time wiring. So I think it's...
Maybe I can just clone their thing and just use the session setup that they have. Because they have all set up with it. And whatever. If it's talking to a local database, I can just get one on Heroku and give it a URL. So it works. You know what I'm saying?
Also,
it'd be nice
I know
to
the
use
app you're trying to build. So I'm like pushing you towards this. But like it would be good to see what client-side Remix looks like.
But I don't think I want to do that. Like with like use SWR.
I know, but people are using Firebase with Remix. It would be good to see what that looks like.
Yeah. But they could be doing it all from the server, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It would just be weird. Well.
No.
It'd just be writing a node
some
server.
people like... Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do something... Yeah, it'd be nice if there was... It'd be nice to do it with... Maybe I can just clone something. I mean, the thing is, as funny as I just this morning, it took 2 hours and I added like the user avatar thing to my app, and it was like just actually very pleasant to do because finally, like I have a nice modal in there. I've got a nice form. I got the image cropper, which already worked. I've got your S3 plugin wired in, so I have the ability to do like uploads. It's authenticated and everything. And And I was like, man, it'd be nice to like, I'm actually happy with like the auth and the data setup and just like the app layout. I could just like copy and like just start writing a new app, but actually with all like the wiring done. And so that would be fun too. But I want to learn Remix for this new project just for fun. But it'll be interesting to see. Maybe I'll start with no auth.
I think if you want to do
Weekend Warrior, you know?
Yeah, I would be.
That'd be interesting because then I get to learn like Prisma without auth, which would be nice.
Yeah, you're still going to want auth.
Eventually. But I'm saying like just for the like Basecamp style, man. Send an email, no verification, text box, get it working, build the momentum.
Okay.
Instead of taking weeks to get login in. You know what I'm saying? I want to get like a form I can save my 1Rep Maxes on at the gym.
I can't imagine auth taking weeks in Remix if they're nudging you towards
server stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the reason auth takes weeks with the current setup is because you have to wire all
multiple services talk to each other
together, and you also have to wire them together on the back end.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
Dude, I would decide what kind of app you want to build, and then I
want to build a Remix app. You keep asking that question.
No, but that's not a good answer because there's a difference between.
But if you're not using Loader and if you're not using their Loader function to load data, I think they'd be like, you're doing Remix wrong.
That's not what I'm. Hold on. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like, do you want to write a Firebase app, a Supabase app? Like, what tech do you want to use?
I don't really have an opinion about that.
Yeah, I would say Remix and Prisma, just because it's like Prisma is very, very nicely.
It's for
tightly. Like there's not a lot of entry points into it. It runs on the server.
Yeah.
Where if you use Firebase, you might have to. Oh, is my client going to write this data? Is my client going to send data to my backend, and my backend writes this data?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think just like what's it called again? Loader and action.
It's so fun. By the way, you're proving Ryan's point about audio file. Like.
That I care about
because you just want to use Loader. You don't actually care about what the app does.
Yeah, I want to use Loader. No, I want to use Loader because I want to follow like the happy path. You know, and there's going to be Loader is like a function that runs on the server, right? My understanding.
I don't know enough.
Yeah, I think it runs on the server. So I think in the demos they have like you literally import like Prisma and then like you're connecting to like a database on the server in Loader, and then same with Action too. So I think your React code ends up being a lot dumber.
Cool.
Like if you use a form, you just literally let the browser send it all that data and everything like that. So it'd be fun to see, you know. But it's like the React stuff is my favorite part. So now I write less React and then more server code. But maybe it, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd just be interesting to see what happens. You know, what I can do in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I was going to do a rich client app, I guess that would be interesting. I wonder if they have docs on that. Like if you want to make an SPA with Remix, is that even like a thing?
I mean, I don't know, but I would be shocked. Like I would be everything.
That's not what they're trying to do.
No, I would be shocked if you couldn't do that.
If you couldn't do it.
Yeah, because everything I see about Remix, yes, I know the form actions and the loaders, but it's React and it's JavaScript. Like if I didn't want to go through my server and I wanted a form that sent data to Firebase, I would be surprised if I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I guess the question is like, why are you using Remix at that point? But I guess they have like the nested loading and the nested routes and stuff like that. They have things that don't even have to do with data persistence.
Yeah, the server rendering, because like React, how would I get server rendering?
Yeah,
in React?
I guess versus Next, if you're going an SPA route. I don't know enough. I'll have to see it.
Okay. Yeah.
But like I think like a lot, they do want you to make like a server, because then it's like you make a request and it's like you can check if you're authenticated and you can return like a 404 from the server, or you can like do a redirect from the server. So like I think they're going to, again, I need to spend more time based on the marketing. They're going to nudge you towards like making a server app.
Gotcha.
In that, as opposed to an SPA that has the client, like the session on the client, only on the client. You know what I mean? Like your API routes basically, well, they know about all that stuff. They know the context for the current user. They know how to read and write data. And that lets you do like, you know, dynamic OG tags from the server.
Right. So more of it's a Rails style app written in React.
But then they do like the prefetch things, you know, like you hover and you prefetch like the code and the data, like you run your loader function so that when you click on it, you can do a client-side navigation. Basically, everything after the initial render is a client-side navigation, but it's more like TurboLinks kind of thing.
Cool.
So I think that's the idea. But
yeah, in that case, I would treat this like just
like a Rails app.
I would treat this like a Rails app, and I would use Prisma
or something like
and
Prisma.
I would not try to have something
Services.
like Supabase where I'm writing server code that's just proxying requests. And the reason for that is it's not because I think it's bad or wrong. The reason for it is because you're going to spend a lot of time wiring.
Yeah. I guess I was wondering about that trade-off, the wiring and getting like Hasura to a point where it is my fitness app where it's pleasant to use because it knows everything. And that lets me on the margin just go and add a avatar URL to my user and I'm done. Versus Prisma, I'm going to have to write like migrations and stuff, right?
Prisma,
and I have a database running locally.
Prisma will auto-generate the migrations for you. The problem is you said you want to get momentum and write something in a day, and you're not going to be able to write the Hasura stuff in a day.
The Hasura, right? The wiring, like the wiring, auth hook, talking to something. Totally.
So
totally.
I think I would go again thinking about this like a Rails app that happens to use React.
Right.
I would optimize for
local database.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds not fun.
It's fine.
It sounds all right. It might be okay.
We used Prisma on one of the apps, and there was a lot of time spent wiring the GraphQL to Prisma to database and vice versa. A lot of boilerplate there.
GraphQL to Prisma. So Prisma uses GraphQL?
No.
Oh, you were saying you had the layer.
So you get a GraphQL request comes in. You have to transform that to some Prisma code that's going to execute database. And then you're going to get a result from the data. And then you're going to get results from the database that you then want to turn into GraphQL responses.
I see. Yeah.
And so and if you think about this, there's some situations where it's really good to have that flexibility. I'm charging a user's credit card, sending them an email, and then signing them up to this newsletter. There are different transformation steps that you want to perform. There's other things where it's like, I'm writing data to a database. Why am I spending all this? Well, I'm writing a blog post to a database. Why am I spending all this time?
That should be like library code. Really. It's just to enable the client to use GraphQL. That's the only reason. Because you're transferring data, you need something. So But in my case, if I stuck to all the server APIs, I don't need GraphQL.
I
wouldn't want
it. If you can just submit a form and you have form.name.
Params. Yeah. Insert. You're like, I'm going to give Sam about 23 minutes on this, and then he's going to come crawling back to a visual IDE. I can click around and copy paste query and be done with it. It could be fun. I'll try it.
Yeah. Prisma you just end up writing a lot of code. That's all. You just as soon as you just end up writing. You'll see. You just end up writing.
And isn't it all like types? All that? I don't like any of that. Okay, it's none of that. No, that's different.
There are people you can enforce things on top of it, but no, Prisma is very
vanilla.
You write,
but there's no active rec. It is active. It's not active. That's the thing. Record. That's like
it's like the tool. Okay, so
I don't care when I use Rails and I'm talking to a local database because active record is just like a feat of engineering, and I can just user.find one.
So you can do that. Prisma has all that.
Okay, but Prisma it doesn't have the relationship stuff.
It does, but it's not like
it's not as pleasant to. It's not
users dot events. Where was speaker,
and that's like a derived lambda on your class.
That's all just user.events.
It's just JSON.
.speaker. Like you can just write that in active record, and you can't really write that in Prisma.
I see.
Prisma gives you the tools to be able to create something to write that.
I see.
But
nothing like as comprehensive as active record out of the box.
No. But they do support relationships. They do support migrations. They do have all the helper methods. I want to find this. I want to find that. Like you'll be able to do all that.
What about getting that wired up to like CI? like if I push migration and it automatically
really easy because GitHub Actions gives you Postgres. They just give you Postgres. They give you it's super clever. They're you can put like key names in GitHub Actions, and they're literally going to be like the name of the container on the Docker registry.
Okay.
So you write Postgres : and then you do like version blah, username blah, password blah, and you're like, oh wow, GitHub Actions has like Postgres built in, but it's really just pulling that image from Docker registry.
I see.
So it feels like it feels like magic.
That's pretty cool.
You can for CI if you use GitHub Actions, you use Postgres, and when you're defining that Postgres container, you give it a username and password, and then that will be like your username and password for your test runs. Yep,
that'd be cool. Interesting. I wonder how long it would take me to get like a Remix app deployed from GitHub. That should be easy by itself. Then get a database up that's deployed alongside my pushes.
Does Remix have integration that deploys from GitHub? I know that's like
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it runs on like Vercel though, so I guess you could do it there.
Okay. What do they recommend? Don't they recommend?
It is nice just that your data.
Cloudflare. I know they talk.
That's about like something they talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or do they not recommend anything? Do they just?
I don't know.
You can use whatever you want.
That's a good question. I need to read about it. They like Cloudflare because it runs your code at the edge, I guess.
Yeah,
but I don't really care about that for a weekend project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you want what's easiest to deploy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you just want the one click.
Yeah. Okay, I'll have to try it out.
For database, I would say I would use Postgres.
Does Vercel have Postgres hosted?
No.
That's why we always get on Heroku and then put the config in.
You get on Heroku.
You get on AWS?
I do Google App Engine.
Oh, God.
I actually think Google App Engine.
So wait, what does all this edge deploy crap matter if your database is in a Heroku box somewhere? It doesn't matter if your code is servers.
That's why you want something like plant scale data.
Okay.
So where they have like I think maybe you should use MySQL. I think they're MySQL.
Okay.
And Prisma supports MySQL.
And
whatever they are, we can pull up their docs.
They run it all over the world or whatever.
Yeah, they just tell you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
They're like, it's our problem, not yours.
It's like great that you can run code in Thailand, but then if you add a new, you delete a user and then someone in Seattle is like clicking on them, how is that? How is there not latent? How do they solve the cap problem? They violate the cap theorem.
Yeah, but they can make trade-offs and saying, we'll send writes to one location and we'll put reads all over the world. And since your app is like 90% reads.
Also, isn't that why you have to usually use key value? Because like they can partition your data. So like if you have a lot, I was listening to the Remix came out with a podcast and they had like 12 episodes. There's one with this guy talking about, I forget where he worked, but it was about all of this.
Okay.
I think he worked for Cloudflare. Cloudflare is Amazon? No.
Cloudflare
is Amazon. Cloudflare is a company that used to make CDNs that you didn't care about. And then this is my summary. And then realized, if we let people write code on the CDNs, like they care way more about it. We already have the CDN network. Boom, let's just do that. That's like what Cloudflare Pages is or something like that. So, is that about right?
Yeah.
Like because CDNs don't matter to us in the sense that when we were deploying Ember apps, you push a button that enables cloud. What was the Amazon CloudFront, and then you're like, boom! I didn't change anything, but all of a sudden my app is distributed everywhere, and I didn't really care about it in the sense that like I didn't really need to write. It was like a transparent layer that it was a cache.
Yeah.
And he was saying like now it's like, well, people care, and especially
people care about this,
but if you want to write code and do things like query and mutate your database from a CDN, it has an effect on how you structure your data because you can't do a join across and tables of relational data, because that means that the system has to be aware of all the data. Whereas if you have document storage and you say Ryan's working on his document, we can put that by this user right here, and we can now let you write to it quickly because we know that this node over here is not going to have to write to it.
Interesting.
That's like the whole thing that you sent me back with the guy thinking, not turn the database inside out, but one of those guys. Guy was talking about, what's the Amazon one, the document store?
Cassandra. When it's not Dynamo.
Yeah, Dynamo. When I was learning about Dynamo, when you were writing a Dynamo app, so that's where it actually has an effect on the developer. I know we're like all over the place right now.
But I would maybe at like the implementation level, but I would say, like, again, this plant scale
that's
data,
why I'm going to use Postgres.
You just delegate to plant scale data
because they let you use relational database.
It's
MySQL.
It's MySQL. I think I'm like 90% sure it's MySQL, and then 10% it might be Postgres.
Because 90%, but it's a relational. It's just relational.
Yeah. Also, Amazon has a product called Aura, which is MySQL,
but like Dynamo, it's like distributed.
It's MySQL.
Okay.
From your point of view, you actually don't care about the implementation.
He was saying you do, and also the Dynamo guy was saying you do. He was saying when we use Dynamo on Amazon,
I know, but you
as the weekend.
What I would say to these guys is,
I don't want to.
I want MySQL.
Of course, me too.
So if you can tell me you can offer me MySQL, I actually don't care about the implementation.
No, 100%. My takeaway from the podcast was like, people are going to have to unlearn and learn some new things in order to take advantage of doing distributed data at the edge or whatever, which is what part of what these frameworks are. What's important for it's important for the story of why they're fast, because it was like, we're slow because we're always running in US East. Okay, let's make an SPA and we can separate the static parts of our site from the dynamic parts. And that way we can build a static version of our app and distribute it on CDNs. That way our slow data layer in the US East is not affecting the initial page load. So that's like the whole next thing, and you push it out. And then Remix is basically saying, well, now we have the capability to run code at the edge, and the decoupling of the static and dynamic is like a really bad thing for DX, because it's like you have to think about so much.
A lot of loading.
It'd be a lot easier if you could just always use dynamic stuff. And so if we can make that fast, then we don't have to do this whole build step thing. But in order to do that, at least with Dynamo and some of these other, you have to do data differently than we're used to doing it with relational.
I know,
database.
but
I wouldn't use it until I could use relational.
I would hardcore push back.
Yeah, me too.
And say that's like too big.
It's a big ask, but that is the reality with Dynamo, right? I mean, right when you use Dynamo, you had to.
I know, but I wouldn't like
you build an app with it.
People don't understand that how different Dynamo is from Postgres and MySQL, from relational data. It's completely different.
I don't even want to learn how to do it.
But there's people that are just like, it's no problem. You just create a model. It's very different for like back end internal tool applications that we work on. Like you actually want relational
events, data. Speakers, and talks,
you want aggregates, you want joins, you want these things matter. You want indexes, so you want to be able to quickly create these things. Like everything you've said up until the data point has just been like, okay, I'm like moving pieces around on my app, but the architecture is still the same.
Right.
The way I think about the app is still the same. But then as soon as you say like, okay, and now you have to use Dynamo, then it's just like, big difference. No, that's like you cross the line. Like it's no longer like
a comparison.
Like, okay, you're deploying to US East, but you actually have people in Japan that are using your app. And so we're going to deploy to servers all over the world now, so people can request your app at the edge. Like, you actually haven't changed how I've written my app,
right?
So I'm okay with that. But then
no, I agree, and I wouldn't want to obviously do that. I would want the most familiar thing, which is getting me closest to something like Rails. So I would use just SQL, whatever form that is, Prisma or anything. What will be interesting is like, okay, so, and I think it's still fast, but if the story for like why remixes can be so fast is because of these technologies that run on the edge, which I'm not going to do today because they're new or they require like a big jump like a Dynamo does.
But how would I kind of just stop here? I don't know if that is true. I think there are
like something like Planet Scale might just be just as natural to use as Prisma is, but it just happens that it will run everywhere.
You use Prisma with Planet Scale.
Oh, okay.
Planet Scale is a MySQL server. the implementation is such.
And Prisma is like an ORM.
Here, let's pull up the docs for for PlanetScale.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I was just going to say, of course, none of this really matters for a side project, anyways. That's being used by a few friends in New York. But I would be interested to compare because my next app that talks to Hasura, it actually is a little slow sometimes. It might be because of a cold start, on like my hobby plan on Heroku. So I need to check that out. But like sometimes when it does the querying and stuff, it does take a second. Obviously, the interactions are super snappy because it's all client side. But I'd be interested to see that comparison of this with the Remix app that uses like Prisma and whatever, a database on Heroku or something. It's being run centrally. But I want to just see.
No. You're making things up. The speed of your client talking to Heroku and the speed of your client talking to my server, Remix, which is talking to Heroku, they're going to be roughly the same. Now we can. Wait, hold on. We can come up with situations where we put you on Antarctica.
Or in the subway. I mean, that's what they say.
No. It's different if we can come up with situations that are different, but like you in New York City, like if you're not getting sub 100 millisecond responses from Heroku, there's like something wrong being in New York City. Like there's something wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just telling you what they said, man.
I mean, again, we can I'm
that's like, fast.
I have my hardcore like realist hat on. Yes, we can come up with situations where your link to the server and the server's link is going to be fat. But like, come on, we're talking about 20 milliseconds in this situation. Like, we're not talking about. No, we're just making things up here. We're not talking.
Well, I won't say anything else because I'm getting under your feathers over here. But I will say that in some of the stuff that I've heard them say, basically what they say is like the way they phrase it is like, we don't have control over the user's network. And it does change. I mean, there's times I'm on my back porch where it's like slow because for whatever reason or a subway or something like that. And so they're just saying, well, we do control the speed between our servers and like these services like, Heroku or whatever. It'll always be faster from our server.
Literally doesn't matter if your user has no internet.
Well, yeah. I guess
by the way, we did this, so I can talk about like the TED architecture and how we did this. So, you have a client in Amsterdam that's requesting a page, and you can make a request on the client's device to our Rails app, which is running in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's from Virginia through whatever London, underneath the ocean, to Virginia. And that we have no idea how that request gets routed because we have no idea when the client's ISP gets a request for Virginia, we just don't know how they're going to route it.
Right.
But if we also have a server running in Amsterdam,
right,
we're pretty sure that the browser in Amsterdam to the server in Amsterdam is going to be like relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
It's not going to like go through China.
Yeah.
So, and then we also know that our server in Amsterdam to our server in Virginia is going to be like, these are like in two AWS data centers.
Right.
We know that's going to be like a straightforward path.
Right.
And so like, even though there's an extra hop that you have to go through the server in Amsterdam, it's still like, it's like easier to predict.
Yeah.
It can be like faster. So like that.
Isn't that their point though? Aren't you making
I'm arguing.
But you're saying,
but I'm saying like this, like I have an app running in Virginia and I'm in New York City. Like there's just like, again, we can come up with situations around the world where it is better to go to the closest server and then do like server to server communication because like, those lines are pretty solid. Like,
But if you're just talking to like
the reason your app shows a loading spinner is not because your app is slow to talk to Heroku. There's like Heroku. Millions of browsers that talk to Rails apps running on Heroku and they're not slow.
Right.
So it's probably like a hobby instance that just takes 3 seconds of cold start.
It would be interesting overall just to see and compare though. Most of it is probably being in the subway and like just having weird connection stuff. But I don't think that would matter whether I'm sending like however much data. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much data I'm sending over. In theory, you could say like the browser, the device has to do less work if it just has to like, if I'm doing more of the work on the back end or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't think that would actually that's got to be like 1% of it as opposed to just bandwidth. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying like think about the, whatever. I'm trying to think some interaction that my fitness app does, and because it has, it's loading. Maybe it has to like load the Firebase client code package. That has to be loaded.
Dude, for sure. You have to load, like right now, all of our apps have to load GraphQL clients.
Right, exactly.
I would rather, I have two thoughts here. One is like, I would rather write these, although these cases are real cases that exist for the apps that I work on, I am very dismissive of because my apps don't have these problems.
Yeah.
If I have to download a 3 megabyte GraphQL client, it's not a problem. I realize that it is a problem for some apps out there, but it's not. So
yeah.
The other thing
I agree. There's the speed thing.
Have you ever heard like the Prague cafe test? Do you remember this? It was like
sounds familiar.
So it was an old Ember thing where it was like in like, I don't know, 2012 or something. And it was like, basically it's like Ember versus Rails, right? And there's a lot of back and forth about like server rendered apps and SPAs. And an argument that the SPA folks made was that when you have an Ember app, you download
the whole app
you don't
have to make a round trip,
and then all your requests like form submissions or link clicks are just sending and receiving JSON,
tiny JSON payloads as opposed to whole HTML pages,
right? Yeah. And so there was like a point where they were at a conference in Prague. That's a place, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
it's Monday. Don't worry. I mean,
they were at a cafe, and none of their server rendered apps were all slow. They click a link, and it would take forever. And so, like but again, this just makes me think like I can come up with all these situations, and I can like force an architecture down your throat to like just to talk about this one situation.
Dude, I remember being on the plane with the Ember app. We had just done add-on docs, and I was like hacking on a project and using the Ember animated docs site, and that's a completely static site but also shipped as a single bundle, so there wasn't even code split, which actually was wonderful because it was the only site I could use. I had it up and I clicked around and everything worked,
because once you had it,
you have it, and then otherwise GitHub, it's like useless. So there were definitely other times too that I encountered that you're on a plane and like you'd rather not. But these days we like code split so much, but maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. Like maybe it would actually be better for like my side projects to just like, if you could have a single bundle, it'd be pretty nice, because then it's just fast.
I feel like that's like a decision that we should be able to, maybe in like your Webpack config, you can make that decision. But
anyways, all that was kind of like a detour, because I don't even care about, it's like you said, I'm not running into speed issues at all with any of this stuff. It's always complexity and how easy it is to add this feature. So my reason for wanting to do the database stuff in the server where they nudge you is just because I want to see how much it does eliminate, if it does make it simpler and less complex to just, I don't have to install Formic. I don't have to use GraphQL. Mm-hmm. So I just want to see what that's like. And then see what the resulting experience is like, in spite of the fact that the folks are excited about database at the edge, so they're talking a lot about it, but that's not actually what I care about at all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Talking to a database in Virginia has never been a problem for the stuff that I've worked. I mean, most of the stuff. I mean, the public stuff at TED, obviously, that was a constraint. I mean, even that affected our architecture. But in terms of the back office apps, SPAs,
Yeah, we had caching stuff.
Yeah, we needed data replication.
But
because of that problem. I mean, because a centralized database server was too slow.
We would cache. This was like, I don't want to like hand wave this.
Like, we would
cache. We could use Varnish, CDN style caching, because if you think about TED, like so few pages actually involve writes.
Right.
So since everything is a read, as data flows through your server, through your CDN, you can just cache the thing that flow through. And then for the next request, it can get it.
Right.
So like really simple, like old school internet caching.
Yeah.
Yeah. The writes.
What was the bus created to solve? What was the
share? That's like for sharing data.
For backend apps?
Yeah.
Back office apps?
Just any app.
Yeah.
Any apps need data. And so every app would set up an API.
Is it not true to say that's because a single database it wasn't about speed. It was more about complexity. It was about sharing data. It's like, and every app having its own database that has up-to-date data.
It's just like, what's the best way to, if you need data from 5 different apps, what's the best way?
Got you. I thought the Rails setup we had for the front end that was like running, because it needed a database, right? In each instance of like TED.com that was running around the world or whatever. That's right. It used the virtual like active model stuff.
No. It was
just the varnish caches. That's what was distributed. It was never the app.
Because again, it's so read heavy that you don't actually need the app. Now, okay, like there's like
a few pages.
There's all complexity here. Like we did deploy the Rails app globally.
Yeah, that's what I thought I remember.
But the database was in one location, and then also too, alongside the Rails apps, there were varnish instances, so that the Rails apps. So this is like the idea, like the Rails apps can talk to the database, they can cache their output,
and they can have a cache in Japan. You can have a cache in South Africa,
and
or whatever.
If you need a write, you don't. It's a cache miss.
Right.
You go through the Rails app.
Right.
Which is then
Come back
talk
to
the database. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so few. Yeah, of course, like you could find an example where it's like, oh, look, this write took, it's like literally can't go faster than the speed of light. Yeah, it's true. And like that adds latency. It's like,
because you're talking to a database that's far away.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, there's depends on how many writes there are.
Yeah.
If there's not a lot of writes, not really a problem.
Right.
There's other apps out there that have tons of writes.
Right.
So yeah. Maybe if I was doing like
that's interesting. Like
analytics service or something, the architecture might be different because that has way more writes than reads.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. I think for my side project apps specifically, but even also like, I think there's a similarity between the kind of apps I work on and also the kind of stuff that we've done at companies we've also helped like consulting clients with. It's like you do want data freshness, and there are a lot of writes. Like I usually open up my app and I tap something, and like you want to see it update, you want to see your friends' things update. It wants to be fresh. It's like if you post, you can understand why if you post a new talk and it's going to take 10 minutes for it to show up on the homepage, that's okay. Because it's way more important for the millions of people who are just requesting it to be able to get it really fast than for a change in the CMS layer to show up immediately. Yeah. So that's like a tolerated thing. But for like the kind of project, exactly the kind of project I want to write and remix is what I would want from Rails, which is you press a button and then you reload the page and it has the fresh data and everything.
Yeah. By the way, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. When I say like slow to write, I'm talking like how many, like if I have to send a request,
how long,
all the way to the database, like that would be like.
I guess the reason I didn't bring that up for that, I brought it up because like the notion, a lot of times the discussions about speed and deploying to the edge and static builds that are invalidated. It's true that stuff comes at a cost of the ability to easily make like an app that's like fresh and up to date, right? Like if you're caching something, you need to invalidate it. So it'd be easier. There's something I like about the angle that they're talking about, which is like, it's again, the mental model I'm bringing from Rails. You have a Rails with a database, you deploy it to Heroku. You're not going to have stale data bugs ever. Like you're not even going to have to think about a cache, whatever. No cache. It's like no cache for as long as you can.
Right.
Which is like how you should do it because caches are like complicated. So I feel like that's maybe like an interesting thing that's maybe lost because it's fun to talk about pushing out static builds to the edge and caching them close to your users. But for the weekend warrior, that's not a concern. But it's a big part of like what people are talking about with both Next and Remix these days.
I'm trying to think here, like,
but maybe not. Maybe it's just one aspect of it, and it's like,
I think for me the big light bulb with Next was you can hand roll all the stuff that Next does. You're going to do a way worse job, but you can hand roll it with tech like Varnish. Even with like Fastly. Fastly's like Varnish.
I know, but do you even care about servers? Sorry, go ahead.
But like, it's going to take you a ton of time.
Yeah.
There's going to be bugs where Next kind of cracked that nut. It was like, oh, we can actually do this all for you. There's some trade-offs you need to be aware of, but they've done a pretty good job, I think, with the revalidation stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
But the fact that you can now just get push and your app is like globally distributed HTML. So I think that's a cool thing about these services. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. The fact is, like, when I write Next, I write a React app and I don't have to change.
But you do, though. That's the thing. There's tension because like a lot of the complexity in Next when you get started and when you do different things, I mean, we talk about it. Like there's times where we only want to work on the client and we have these guards up because the router's not ready. Why is the router not ready? It's only because server rendering exists. Why does server rendering exist? Is only because we want to make it faster in the case of these big sites where we can push out static assets to the CDN. So if you're working on like a
fitness... But you can disable that. I mean, you can disable that.
How?
One guard in the root of your tree.
But then it's more than that though. It's like,
I don't think, I mean, it is more than that where if you have a library.
It's also features that don't matter for that use case that could have been features that helped you build, like the stuff that's in Remix or whatever, like a loader that lets you click on a link and load the data and then transition. Like that's very hard to do in Next.
Click on a link.
Although like you do have server side props or whatever. So I guess if you're writing server code anyway in your Remix app, you could be writing that in your Next app.
Yeah.
But like,
I don't know. I think they did a pretty good job of like all these things.
But like the model hook not being there, right? Like Ember was about like an SPA, all in on SPA, right?
I know, but there were big problems with that.
There were some, but there were other things that were good, like the model hook and transitioning a page to load data. It's like hard to do that out of the gate in Next.
I don't think Next is trying to solve that problem. Like, I don't think Next is even...
I guess what I'm asking is like, do you think that there's tension between... So on the one hand, you have like, man, I'd really love to like click a link, load some data and render a page and just have that be like something that the framework tells me how to do, which it basically doesn't right now because data loading in React is like complicated and like there's lots of ways you want to do it. Now they do have like get server side props, which is like one way to do that, right? So like if I could take my copy and paste my Prisma code from Remix, my hypothetical Remix app that we're talking about for an hour without having ever used it, and paste it into get server side props, and I'd have something very similar, right?
Yes. At least I don't know Remix, but I do know Next.
Yeah. So that's that. But again, it's like, well, we've been doing the client side stuff because that's kind of what you're nudged to in Next, more or less, if you kind of read between the lines, or that's what we like doing. So where was I going with this?
We were talking about like trade-offs and
right. So I think so on the one hand, like, you have complexity in the APIs of these things because they want to make sure you don't get stuck with like a Ember size bundle everywhere because that was causing problems for like e-commerce sites, right?
They want a really nice story for server side rendering.
Exactly. But on the other side of it, like there is almost a tension there with like your productivity, because you could imagine like if everyone did data fetching like we did, like Next would look it would look different. Like there would be more help. There would be more APIs that would help. Basically the stuff that I've been working on, you know what I mean? You could imagine like a meta layer.
But I like...
On the flip side, we worked with teams that did do the bundle thing, which was great to get started and is basically the same as like what I was saying earlier about Rails, which is like, just give it to me all fresh all the time to start, like no caching, no dealing... I mean, you have to admit, if you get rid of the server, like the server-side rendering, like it's a lot simpler in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that become a lot simpler without server-side rendering. I mean, we say that like once a week. Like there's just the two environments, like knowing what runs and blah, blah, blah. I mean, the API routes. Anyways, all I was going to say is on the other side of it, there's been times where you have your SPA thing like Intercom, and then they've been working on it for years and it's an awesome SPA. And then their homepage is like loading all this JavaScript that runs your admin area and you just want to render a page. So it is nice that you can do that in like a Next.js where you can pre-render that. But for my stuff, it's like, I feel like there should be a nice path there, I guess, where it's like, I want to start with like a client. This is why I'm going to try to do the remix thing because it's like I'm going the opposite. It's like a server.
I know, but everything you're saying is, I'm just saying you shouldn't be using remix.
Well, I mean, it'd be nice if something existed that was like remix, but let me do everything on the client so I could use Hasura and not write server code, but then also have really nice conventions around forms and linking and navigation that would just let me not have to write some of the boilerplate code I've had to in the past. That's one way to put it. Like what Blitz is trying to do, or what Redwood's trying to do. Like, I just haven't, those aren't, they're big, but they're not like, I'm more interested in like the biggest stuff now, I guess.
Yes.
I could try it. But yeah, anyways.
By the way, I think you can get there with Next in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should.
I think if I copy and pasted what I have now and I start a new app, it'd be pretty awesome. But I'm going to do it in Remix because I want to. It'd be good to compare them, But it's kind of like, that was like a very long-winded way of saying like the speed. It's good to think and understand what is relevant to what you're building because it's not all the same. And like the speed stuff and the distributed databases, like, first of all, that seems like it's super early. I mean, I know people are using it, but like most people are not using distributed databases. I was supposed to look at the planet scale data. Most people are not using distributed databases right now that can fork your database and run it all over the world or whatever. Most people are probably deploying databases on Heroku, right? Or Amazon, right? Am I wrong there?
Yeah, for all the apps we've worked on, it's been a centralized database.
Exactly. So like that to me is fine, and yeah, I don't really know what I'm trying to say anymore, but I think that it's like it's good to know what you're trying to build and what you're trying to improve on, and so that you can know.
Here's like I'm being like a ranty old web developer. By the way, I love this new tech, but like a big question for me is like I need to get something.
I think there's a lot to get out of Remix.
But the stuff that you're going to get out of Remix, the stuff that I think I'm going to put myself in this boat with you that I think that we would be really excited to use Remix for is stuff like
getting rid of effects,
nested routing, loaders. Yeah.
Getting rid of effect code, just like making your React code dumber.
It's not reimagining our databases.
No, definitely not.
So like, I'm very like,
definitely not.
Yeah.
But that's why it's kind of like, that's why I wanted to talk about it, because like that's the stuff, maybe it's just what I'm clicking on and seeing in the marketing and educational stuff and like the podcasts that I listen to, and even the homepage of Remix, I'm pretty sure is like, while you were waiting for your static build, distributed.
Such a great,
it really is good.
Little line.
It's like while you were waiting for your static site to build, distributed web infrastructure got really good, break through the static. And then it's talking about Cloudflare workers. See, I've heard so much about Cloudflare workers. I still don't know what the heck they freaking are. And I don't care right now. I don't care.
Get server-side props.
I don't care.
Get server-side props that runs at the edge. That's how you should think of them.
Get server-side. Yeah, but I don't want to know about the edge. I want to be in the middle. I want to stay right in the center. The edge is scary. I want to be in the middle with my big teddy bear. I lost you.
I'm reading about planet scale data.
I don't want to know about planet scale data. I just want to click buttons and submit forms really easily and see how far that gets me. So like, I want I want what I've wanted for 10 years, Rails for JavaScript, like Rails for React. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's what I'm saying is it's sometimes hard to tease through the different angles of marketing here, but it could be, this could be a cool, it could be getting closer to that in some of the trade-offs it makes.
I don't think so, but I mean, I could be wrong. I
like having a loader function. That's like a big deal for me. No, you know what I'm saying? Next is never going to have a loader function. I mean, they have get server side.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not fair. Maybe it's the same thing. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm like just thinking of how
I threw a lot out there.
I think I
like writing React.
The remix stuff strikes me as there's a lot of things in it that I like. I don't think it's Rails for React. Maybe that's like their end goal is to get there, and you can't just. I mean, Rails didn't start out with what
everything.
Mailers
and everything.
Yeah, I remember Rails 3 was like a huge like tons of stuff, tons of goodies. It's like so
it'll be fun.
Maybe it's unfair to compare 15-year-old framework to brand new JavaScript.
Yeah. I'll have to try it out and report back.
Yeah.
I don't want to do any of the fancy stuff I've been doing in my project. I want to do like reads and writes for like exercises with sets and reps. That's like it. Mm-hmm. And I want to see how easy it is with like really plain forms.
The thing about these tools is, I will say, like, we started off with Rails, PHP, server rendered apps, just client only. You click buttons, server does all the logic. Mm-hmm. And then we went full SPA with Ember and Angular, where client is super smart.
Cache, you have to download identity map.
You have to download whole bundle. And there's all these problems that come out of that that we've talked about.
Yep.
It feels like we're ending up in an area that's like this in between with Remix, with Next. That's like, hey, client does some good things.
Yeah.
But also having like dedicated place for code on the server is a really good idea. So, I don't look, that's how
I think about this as differently than Next though. I mean, that's
interesting.
That's where the tension, like the point of disagreement is. It's true that Next gives you get server side props, right? But do they revalidate it if you mutate something? So I had to do the whole revalidate live queries thing, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have to do that with Remix because they automatically do it for you because they know your fetcher and they know your action. So,
whoa, hold on. So their action, when you call an action, they
basically
rerun,
revalidate. They rerun all loaders,
loaders that are currently rendered. Okay.
No, Next, which I had a YouTube video on before I even saw it.
Next,
I felt pretty good about that.
Nice. Next,
I probably got it from them.
Next,
they're not going to do that.
You would have to do that.
Yeah,
they have no idea. They have no idea.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that matters to me because, like, if I didn't have revalidate live queries, while it's a cool idea, it's still something I had to write. If I was writing another Next app, I would do the same thing because what else would I do? Be in some other bad spot. But the fact that I don't have to even answer that question with Remix is pretty cool.
My answer to you would be
use Apollo and manipulate the cache.
Bundle up the conventions into a data fetching.
Well, that would be cool. That maybe is what they've already done. So I agree. That would be cool. But no, that's the kind of that exact thing. Revalidate live queries, which lets me mutate and refresh. It's a good pattern. Not having to write that is the thing that would be most exciting about using Remix to me. Things like that, code like that, effects that refresh or that have to wait and transition because they're going to already do that, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I should stop listening to, even though the Edge stuff is nerdy and cool, it's like, it doesn't actually matter for me or for most of the work I do. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm a little more.
You like it because it's just for free.
I think it's interesting if you don't have to write React apps in a different way.
Yeah.
So like I thought the Next stuff and everything
that is the part I love about it.
I thought that was
no, because there's going to be times in Remix where you reach for a use effect, but that's actually doing it wrong. You should be using an API from Remix because if you do a mutation,
I don't think,
dude, if you do a mutation and an effect, their loaders aren't going to know to rerun. That's why you use the action on the server. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying just don't use effects.
No, you can use effect, of course. No, and they say you can do the fanciest client side, whatever you want to do. But you're doing it within the confines, within the conventions that they have.
Do they have an API to like reload all?
Yeah, they have.
So if you
I think so. Yeah,
imperative code.
Yeah, and they have like this use. They have like I know we're long. They have a use. Like a use form. It's not use form. It's something like that. Use mutation. Use action. Whatever that you can use in client. You can do it on your client. You can probably even. I think you can even use loader. You can use loader data. I don't know. I have to just use it. But the nudging is more what I'm interested in. Like this app looks like, I want my side project to look like the Remix tutorial app, the jokes thing that they have. Mm-hmm. So, and just do it like the way that they would do it.
Yeah, I think you hit by the way, I think you hit the nail. It took us 6 hours to get there, but I think you hit the nail on the head where you would say that Next and Remix are fundamentally different. And I would say that they're not to me.
TBD.
I would say.
At least give me a TBD.
I mean,
they are different. They're different.
I mean, obviously, like the people that work on them would say they're very different. Ours is different but to me, it's a middle ground of server and client side apps, and it is them basically putting stakes in the ground of this is the code we think that's best to run on the server. This is the code we think that's best to run on the client. But when I look at it, it's like, okay, this is awesome. Both these frameworks are trying to bend the curve of the trade-offs.
JavaScript apps.
The trade-offs you have to make between server rendered and client-side apps.
That's true.
And if I can get that curve bent, and so I can do the things I like on the server and the things I like on the client, that's huge. So I guess
you like data fetching and mutation on the client, and I do too.
Yeah.
But that's a no-no. We're gonna listen in a year from now. We're never gonna be.
By the way, the reason I should dig into why, like the reason I like data fetching and mutation on the client is because you eliminate boilerplate.
I know, me too.
So, if you can make data fetching
on the server feel like not boilerplate
and get rid of boilerplate, then I'm all for it.
All right, we better wrap it up. We're the only ones listening anymore.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's all right.
That was fun though. Hopefully I'll have some time soon to check this out. It'd be a lot of fun.
You got one day.
I know, right? Cool. Well, hey, thanks for listening to us ramble. I did like that little talk that we did at the beginning. We didn't really talk about our videos, but I guess we'll have to talk about those next week.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to it. I just put a video up yesterday. It was Sunday the 13th on making the background of my modal shrink down when you pull it up. It took me a while to figure out all the CSS, so I'll put a link to that in the description of my YouTube video for that one.
Nice.
So, you got anything you want to plug?
No.
Okay, good. Hey, thanks for joining us, sticking with us. We will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.